This microphone is a bit low. I need it higher than this. And I think we must have to negotiate how we accommodate
all these other mics.
The microphones plus this facility that I'm going to utilize here. Because it's important that I read from this institution. So let's negotiate the space together. Oh, you don't need SABC camera, the microphone.
I think we must focus on what's important.
Than that part.
Yeah, I'm getting my audio anyway.
Or you can get it,
Yeah.
You're getting it directly.
I'm getting it directly, thanks.
No, thank you very much, National Spokesperson Ntlamulo Ndlela. The leadership of Mkhonto Wesizwe that is here. We've got the Deputy National Chair, we've got the National Organizer, the National Chair, the DSG, we've got the Convener of Gauteng and a member of the National High Command on the table. And we also want to extend our greetings to members of the media. We also want to extend our greetings to members of the media that have joined us today and send our greetings to the members and activists of Mkhonto Wesizwe, the leadership structures from VD level, ward level, sub-regional level, regional level, provincial level, members of the National High Command, and in absentia also our greetings to our Commander General and President Jacob Zuma. We have called this press conference to communicate the outcomes of the National High Command. So the National High Command of Mkhonto Wesizwe held its meeting, the first meeting for 2025, from the 25th of March to the 28th of March 2025 in KwaZulu-Natal, in Umhlanga, in Durban. The meeting was attended by all officials of Mkhonto Wesizwe, members of the National High Command, and for the first time, the meeting included the conveners and coordinators of the provinces where we've got leadership structures, as well as the conveners and coordinators of the MK Women's League, the MK Youth League, and the MK Students Movement. Also in attendance were chairpersons of the National High Command committees who attended the National High Command in their capacity as committee chairs. The National High Command concluded our meeting on Friday, the 28th of March, and the concluding part of the National High Command meeting was to send all members of the National High Command to go and support the by-elections in Kwadukuza, Ward 28, and in Pongola, Ward 12. We extend our gratitude and thankfulness as the National High Command to the people of Ward 2 in Richmond, in Mngungundlovu region in KwaZulu-Natal, for giving a decisive victory to Mkhonto Wesizwe in the by-elections. But also want to thank the people of Ward 1 in Saldanha Bay in the Western Cape for giving Mkhonto Wesizwe the overwhelming majority in that particular ward. We also celebrate the victory of Mkhonto Wesizwe in Kwadukuza Ward 28, where Mkhonto Wesizwe received more than 60% of the vote. And we want to thank also the voters of Ward 12 in Pongola, in the Zululand district or region of KwaZulu-Natal, for voting for Mkhonto Wesizwe. We lost the ward with a very small margins. If certain things had been done differently, we could have won the ward as well. We were delayed, and there are also suspicions of some of the people who voted who do not come and do not reside in that particular ward. But we have received adequate number of votes. The ANC got the highest votes. Mkhonto Wesizwe the second highest votes. And the IFP, which used to lead the ward, got the third highest votes. The other parties did not contest. If they did not receive any numbers that require reporting about. The National High Command takes note of the fact that the year 2025 marks the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter by the Congress of the People. The Freedom Charter remains one of the most important rallying points and strategic visions for all genuine liberation movements in South Africa. The Congress and mass democratic movements mobilize the entirety of South African society and the people of the African continent and the international community behind the vision of the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter shaped and continues to shape and influence the politics of South Africa. Historically, this includes the treason trial, the banning of political parties. The formation of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania was an offspring of the discussions around the Freedom Charter. The formation of Umkhonto weSizwe, the Liberation Army, the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe, the political party, and many other developments are shaped by the Freedom Charter. At the core of the strategic vision and mission of Umkhonto weSizwe is the unwavering commitment to realize the full aspirations and vision of the Freedom Charter, which, amongst other things, says the national wealth of our country, the heritage of South Africans, shall be restored to the people. The mineral wealth beneath the soil, the banks, and monopoly industry shall be transferred to the ownership of the people as a whole. Restrictions on land ownership on racial basis shall be ended, and all land be redivided amongst those who work it to banish famine and land hunger. The Freedom Charter says that the state shall help the peasants with implements, seed, tractors, and dams to save the soil and assist the tillers. The Freedom Charter further says that all shall have the right to occupy land wherever they choose. The Freedom Charter says emphatically that no one shall be imprisoned, deported, or restricted without a fair trial. No one shall be condemned by the order of any government official. The Freedom Charter further says that the courts shall be representative of all the people. It says that imprisonment shall be only for serious crimes against the people and shall aim to re-educate and not vengeance. And that all those who work shall be free to form trade unions, to elect their officers, and to make wage agreements with their employers. The Freedom Charter says that the state shall recognize the right and duty of all to work and draw full employment benefits. The Freedom Charter further says that men and women of all races shall receive equal pay for equal work. It says there shall be a 40-hour working week, a national minimum wage, paid annual leave and sick leave for all workers, and maternity leave on full pay for all working mothers. The Charter says that the aim of education shall be to teach the youth to love their people and their culture, to honor human brotherhood, liberty, and peace. It says that education shall be free, compulsory, universal, and equal for all children. Higher education and technical training shall be opened to all by means of state allowances and scholarship awarded on the basis of merit. The Charter says that adult illiteracy shall be ended by means of mass state education plan, that all people shall have the right to live where they choose, be decently housed, and to bring up their families in comfort and security. It says that unused housing space will be made available to all the people. The Freedom Charter says that rent and prices shall be lowered, food plentiful, and no one shall go hungry. It says that a preventive health scheme shall be run by the state. That says that South Africa shall be a fully independent state which respects the rights and sovereignty of all nations. The Freedom Charter says that South Africa shall strive to maintain world peace and settlement of all international disputes by negotiation and not by war. It says that there shall be peace and friendship amongst all our people, which will be secured by upholding the equal rights, opportunities, and status for all. It is important that we use this opportunity to remind the people of South Africa and the world of the original vision behind the struggles of our people. 70 years after its adoption by the people of South Africa, the Freedom Charter remains the beacon of hope and the meaningful torchbearer towards true freedom and emancipation. The Freedom Charter remains relevant and important despite the fact that those who were originally and historically mandated to realize these objectives have since abandoned the Freedom Charter. It is necessary, important, and vital to emphasize that the struggle remains incomplete as the vast majority of the objectives of the Freedom Charter have not been achieved. In his many cogent and clear political interventions and guidance, our Commander General and founder of Umkhonto weSizwe, President Jacob Zuma, has consistently emphasized that Umkhonto weSizwe exists to complete the unfinished and incomplete struggle, one which, amongst other goals, seeks to fully realize the aims and objectives of the Freedom Charter. The National High Command appreciated the political and ideological consistency of President Jacob Zuma, who throughout his political life has fought relentlessly for the full attainment of the Freedom Charter objectives. This consistency is demonstrated by the statement which he mentioned and said when he was head of state and president in March 2017 when he was addressing the National House of Traditional Leaders in Parliament. In that address, which is available for all to listen to again, President Zuma said in 2017 when he was the president of the former liberation movement, but also was head of state and president, he said, "We need to accept the reality that those who are in Parliament, where laws are made, particularly the black parties, should unite because we need a 2/3 majority to effect changes in the Constitution. We can't fight over nothing and not deal with the real issues and waste time instead of creating the legal institutions to address the problems we have of inequality, poverty, and unemployment." That is what President Jacob Zuma said. So the emphasis on the unification of progressive black parties to have 2/3 to change the Constitution for progressive ideals and mission is not something that President Zuma is talking about just with the formation of Umkhonto weSizwe, the party. He said it even when he was head of state and president. We elevate this statement and will continue to elevate many other political interventions made by President Zuma, including the fact that during his tenure as head of state and president, he did everything within his power despite both internal and external sabotage to advance the realization of Freedom Charter's aims and objectives. In his entire political life, President Zuma has never turned his back against the Freedom Charter. He's amongst the few, if not the only one, of his generation to defend and advance the mission of the Freedom Charter. He was imprisoned for the Freedom Charter and was also sent to exile because of the Freedom Charter. One of the most important and significant outcomes of the National High Command was the initiation or the beginning of an otherwise expansive and organic political, ideological, and organizational discourse on how Umkhonto weSizwe will take power in South Africa on behalf of and for the people of South Africa. To guide this critical work and discourse, the National High Command identified 5 priority areas that will shape our discussions internally on how do we take state power in South Africa. And these areas that we said are going to guide the internal discussions as Umkhonto weSizwe. One, we're going to discuss expansively the MK's revolutionary path to state power. So there's going to be thorough discussions as to how do we take power on behalf of and for the people of South Africa as Umkhonto weSizwe. Two, we're going to have expansive discussions on the domestic, strategic, and tactical alliances. Who are our friends in the pursuit of power for or on behalf of the people here in South Africa? The third component of that is who are our friends strategically and tactically at international level? Then the fourth component of these discussions is how do we finance the revolution? Then the fifth component of what we're going to be discussing as Umkhonto weSizwe is what then should become the character and conduct of an MK revolutionary. That is the discussion which is going to characterize the entire organization from VD level up until the National High Command. The National High Command discussed the terms of reference for each of the mentioned area of focus. These terms of reference will be expanded into comprehensive political positions of Umkhonto weSizwe. All structures of Umkhonto weSizwe at all levels are commanded to, at all given political moment, to discuss Umkhonto weSizwe's path to power and identify both strategic and tactical alliances at the levels where they operate. And they must also discuss how do we finance the revolution, but also what becomes the character and conduct of MK revolutionaries. So instead of discussing squabbles and petty issues that are not relevant, the directive is that there must not be a meeting of Umkhonto weSizwe that does not discuss MK's path to power. How do we take over power here in South Africa as Umkhonto weSizwe? And how and who becomes our friends domestically, globally, and how do we finance the revolution, but also what becomes the conduct of the agents of change, the revolutionaries who are at the forefront of Umkhonto weSizwe as leadership. Whilst appreciating the immediate task of building Umkhonto weSizwe as a formidable political party with functional structures at voting district level, at ward level, at sub-regional level, regional level, provincial level, and national level, Umkhonto weSizwe National High Command also resolved that we should build Umkhonto weSizwe as a leader of a revolutionary total emancipation movement. So we're going to lead a movement. There's a difference between a political party and a political movement. And now as a movement, Umkhonto weSizwe will associate with and lead the following components: a national women's organization, which is the MK Women's League, a youth organization, the MK Youth League, the MK Students Wing, which is the MK Students Movement. We're going to associate with aligned workers' unions in all the sectors. We're going to align and associate in a properly defined political way with civic organizations that should exist in all communities. We're going to, of course, strengthen and have clear relationship that is defined with the ex-combatants and military wing of Umkhonto weSizwe. We're going to also associate with and also found an organization for traditional leadership in South Africa. So there will be an organization which is going to be founded. The process will be led by the national chairperson of all traditional leadership institutions in South Africa. We're going to now finalize the process, which is almost at the tail end of interfaith or interreligious movement. We've got Umkhonto weSizwe interreligious movement, which is comprised of all faith-based organizations and individuals who are going to mobilize behind Umkhonto weSizwe. We're going to associate with sympathetic, messianic and mega churches and religious institutions and other religious institutions. We're also going to associate with sympathetic civil society formations that are going to be in the broader umbrella of building a total emancipation movement under the leadership of Umkhonto weSizwe. So in the period between now and the next meeting of the National High Command, which is going to take place in the second quarter of 2025, What the leadership has mandated the collective to engage on, one is to strengthen the MK Youth and Women's League and make sure that they've got formidable presence in all the regions, sub-regions, wards, VDs of South Africa, and have a stable national leadership structure. But also are going to strengthen the MK students movement to exist fully in all universities, universities of technology, and TVET colleges. We're also going to finalize the appointment of the leadership structure of the MK interreligious movement, which is fully established with its own constitution, with its own values, its own principles. We just need to finalize the appointment of the leadership, which must be geographically balanced, must be gender balanced, must include all faith denominations and components within its leadership collective, and must have leadership that comes from all provinces. We're also going to establish a desk of Umkhonto weSizwe for people with disabilities. We're going to establish a desk in Umkhonto weSizwe for professionals. So there will be a professionals desk of Umkhonto weSizwe, which will also play the other role. We're also going to formalize the relationship between Umkhonto weSizwe and an organization called the Progressive Civics Congress, PCC. The PCC is a civic organization which is growing to be larger than SANCO and is existing in different provinces. And we're going to formalize that relationship between the PCC and Umkhonto weSizwe. We're going to finalize our discussions between the Umkhonto weSizwe and the African Transformation Movement, the ATM, which is under the spiritual guidance and leadership of Dr. Caesar Nongunga of the 12th Apostle Church in Christ. We already have begun joint programs and activities between Umkhonto weSizwe and the ATM. We're going to finalize the modalities as to what form and what shape the relationship between Umkhonto weSizwe and ATM will take going forward to 2026 local government election and towards the total takeover of power in 2029 general elections. And we're going to continue to have engagements with all progressive political formations with the aim of building a common and single electoral platforms for 2026 and 2029. These actions are part of the broader strategic mission to build Umkhonto weSizwe as a movement and not a small political party. This arises from the objective appreciation that unless and until the MK leads a broader movement, our hegemony will not be thoroughly exerted across all spheres of society. Provincial, regional, sub-regional, and world structures of Umkhonto weSizwe must identify, characterize, and build sound relationships with all major black organizations, formations, and societies, inclusive of religious institutions, civic organizations, civil society formations, and all structures where our people are organized. The Umkhonto weSizwe National High Command also began the process to politically and ideologically characterize all political parties and formations in South Africa in order to develop a clear view as to how do we relate with the existing political parties. In broad terms, there are political parties that we categorize in the camp of enemy forces. There are parties that we categorize in the camp of contested opponents, not enemies. So there's a difference between enemy forces and opponents. With an enemy, you don't engage. With an opponent, you can engage with a view that you can have a common perspective on some of the issues. And then, of course, there are political parties that are there for the sake of being there, but they do not have any potential to could win any political power, even at the local state level. And our characterization, we should state this, of the former liberation movement, the ANC, is that it remains a contested opponent, not an enemy force yet, despite its current ideological and political disposition and its current alliance with the enemy forces. That is our characterization of the former liberation movement, that the former liberation movement is a contested opponent, despite its relationship an alliance with enemy forces. That majority of black political formations in South Africa are potential strategic allies to Umkhonto weSizwe, as they largely advocate for policies and political positions similar to those of Umkhonto weSizwe. Our characterization of the domestic balance of forces as Umkhonto weSizwe is that currently the balance of forces are in favor of the forces of progressive change as led by Umkhonto weSizwe. We maintain firmly that the results announced following the 2024 general elections do not represent the will of the people. We also believe that the so-called government of national unity does not reflect the will of the people. These logical observations, alongside empirical evidence at our disposal, continue to inspire and guide our legal challenge to the announced election results, which we believe do not reflect the true democratic choice of the people. And for that function, we are going to take the challenge of the 2024 election results to even international courts if the domestic courts are not going to thoroughly and fairly deal with that. We believe that Umkhonto weSizwe is in a pole position to lead and unite all progressive forces into common political program aimed at achieving total liberation and emancipation. Guided our principles of unity, Ubuntu, Pan-Africanism, honesty and respect, the MK is confident that it will forge the necessary strategic and tactical alliances to safeguard our revolutionary and popular path to state power. In terms of the regional and continental relations, the National High Command is resolved to deepen our engagement with the revolutionary movements and governments across the African continent, including the Polisario Front, which is from Western Sahara, and counters the progressive countries in the Sahel region of the continent, also to deepen our relationships with the people and the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and will have engagements with all the diplomatic missions of progressive countries here that are based here in South Africa. In relation to the ongoing stalemate between Western Sahara and the Kingdom of Morocco, Umkhonto weSizwe will play an active role in seeking and mediating a permanent solution between Western Sahara and Morocco. In this regard, the Umkhonto weSizwe will engage with the Polisario Front and also engage openly with the Kingdom of Morocco to seek a permanent and lasting solution to the current impasse. We pay particular attention to the impasse between Western Sahara and the Kingdom of Morocco because the year 2025 marks exactly 50 years since the dispute over whether Western Sahara is wholly part of Morocco or an autonomous region of Morocco or an independent country or nation. President Jacob Zuma and the MK leadership will engage with all the parties involved, will also engage and visit the Kingdom of Morocco to engage with all the parties involved with the aim of bringing the permanent stability and solution to that particular region. These efforts are aimed at strengthening Pan-African solidarity, also to advance continental decolonization and continental economic integration, which should be aimed at resisting the neo-colonial and imperialist influence. The MK's analysis of the continental politics and developments are not done for the sake of it, but as a mechanism to guide concrete actions and programs which the organization must purposefully pursue. The International Relations Committee of Umkhonto weSizwe will establish focus groups which will pay detailed attention to all regions of the African continent and constantly guide the leadership on the developments in the continent. So we will have a team in Umkhonto weSizwe which will have a direct focus on what is happening in North Africa, in Central Africa, in West Africa, in East Africa, in Southern Africa. in each and every country so that we are fully aware, but also we'll have a dedicated team which is going to focus on our friends from the East in terms of what are the developments, but also going to have a dedicated focus on all the political developments in the West, because those countries even have got dedicated focus on what is happening in our own country. So we must pay attention as to what is happening in those particular countries. The National High Command congratulates the republics of Ghana and Namibia for holding successful elections and undergoing peaceful transitions of power. We celebrate the election of President Dramani Mahama as the president of Ghana, who was elected on the 7th of December 2024 and inaugurated on the 7th of January 2025. And we believe that his election will break Ghana from the chains of neocolonialism and puppetry that defined the country of Ghana under his predecessor, Nana Akufo-Addo. By all measure and standards, Nana Akufo-Addo was a colonial stooge who reversed and looked down on the spirit of Pan-Africanism as promoted by the first president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah. The National High Command specifically celebrates the fact that the Republic of Namibia elected its first female president, President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, Comrade Triple N. The National High Command also celebrates that the Speaker of Namibia's Parliament, Sarah Kungongelwa, is also female. The Deputy President of the Republic of Namibia, Lucia Witbooi, is also female. The Minister of Finance in Namibia, Erika Shafuda, is also female. And the overall composition of the National Executive in the Republic of Namibia has got one of the most balanced and representative cabinets in terms of female participation and representation. This represents a decisive shift in the politics of the African continent and the world, which are disproportionately dominated and controlled by males. We also appreciate the fact that the leadership of Namibia is anti-imperialist and pan-Africanist in character, which is a good development in terms of the politics of the Republic of Namibia. In our celebration of the democratically elected presidents and heads of state, we as Umkhonto we Sizwe unequivocally associate with the revolutionary overthrow of puppet neo-colonial regimes and governments, particularly in the Sahel region of the African continent. We associate with and support the overthrow of neo-colonial governments in the African continent. The revolutionary overthrow of governments in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Gabon is fully embraced, and the leadership is encouraged in those countries to introduce reforms and radical changes that will break those countries from neo-colonialism and imperialism. Umkhonto we Sizwe will openly and decisively associate with Mali's Assimi Goïta, Niger's Abdur Rahmane Tiani, Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Captain Traoré, and Gabon's Brice Oligui Nguema. Umkhonto we Sizwe will associate openly and support all these anti-colonial movements in the African continent, and will take practical steps to build and solidify our relations with progressive forces in the continent and the world. Umkhonto we Sizwe expressed a cautionary concern over the ideological decline over some of the former liberation movements in the continent, which some seem to be aligning with imperialist forces. Nevertheless, Umkhonto we Sizwe will reach out to all former liberation movements in the African continent, inclusive of Frelimo, Chama cha Mapinduzi, SWAPO, all the liberation movements that are progressive. Umkhonto we Sizwe will reach out to have those engagements. And we affirm in relation to the Democratic Republic of Congo that its sovereignty and territorial integrity must be protected. We will not associate with forces that seek to destabilize the Democratic Republic of Congo, and calling on the entire African continent to protect the sovereignty of the Democratic Republic of Congo and only foresee a democratic and peaceful transition of power, not through any form of violence. Globally, Mkondo Wesizwe recognizes that the global balance of forces is undergoing significant transformation, which is a shift from an outdated unipolar world order dominated by Western hegemony towards a more just and inclusive multipolar reality. This shift is marked by the growing influence of progressive nations and movements that advocate for sovereignty, non-alignment, and economic justice, forces which we as Umkhonto Wesizwe we fully align with. In reaffirming our ideological orientation, we have resolved as Umkhonto Wesizwe to actively support a multipolar global order, the de-dollarization of the global economy and international trade, and greater solidarity and economic relations amongst nations of the global South. To this end, Umkhonto Wesizwe will intensify its relations with all the progressive forces, but specifically with all the countries in the BRICS Plus arrangement, particularly Brazil, Russia, China, India, and all the countries that represent alternatives to the Western neo-imperialist paradigms. Umkhonto Wesizwe unequivocally rejects the agenda of the traditional Western powers, particularly those who are rooted on imperialism and exploitation and militarism. The United States of America continues to exhibit an aggressive neo-colonial posture as demonstrated and evident by its posture in supporting the Zionist state of Israel and its ongoing interference in South Africa's internal affairs. Not just interference and mischaracterization of the developments in South Africa. Umkhonto Wesizwe remains vigilant in analyzing these hegemonic maneuvers and the broader implications for African sovereignty and the global South's future. The next component we're going to talk about is the policy process on Umkhonto Wesizwe. Umkhonto Wesizwe has agreed to constitute 8 policy work streams. So work stream 1 will be focusing on reclaiming our dignity. Work stream 2 will be on reclaiming our land and mineral resources. Work stream 3 will be on reclaiming people's power. Work stream 4 is reclaiming our economy. Work stream 5 is building our human capital and technological capability. Work stream 6 is reclaiming our spaces. Work stream 7 is reclaiming our safety and security. Work stream 8, reclaiming our sovereignty and position in Africa and the world. So these are the policy work streams which are going to be led by members of the National High Command as conveners of those work streams. But they're going to be composed of course, other members of the National High Command, members of provincial detachments, MK public representatives, representatives of the MK Youth League, Women's League, and Students Movement. Also representatives of the interreligious movement that associates with MK. Representatives of traditional leaders, professionals, people with disabilities, military veterans and ex-combatants, and experts in different fields. So these work streams are going to enhance and get to solidify the policy positions and draft policies that already were presented and tabled to the National High Command. And those who pay attention to this process will realize that the work streams are the pillars that are contained in Mkhonto weSizwe's People's Mandate, which was the manifesto for Mkhonto weSizwe for the 2024 general elections. Mkhonto weSizwe raises concerns about the reactionary and racially motivated narratives pushed by groups such as AfriForum and Solidarity. We will launch a robust media campaign, including programs like demonstrations, legal and parliamentary programs to counter attempts at secession and division, such as an attempt to break out the Western Cape province into an independent country. We will not agree for the subdivision of South Africa. We will not agree for the secession of even a single inch of South Africa. If anything, we should be working towards integration of the other parts of the African continent into a much more viable countries. In relation to the public representatives, the National High Command affirmed the principle that all representatives of Mkhonto weSizwe in Parliament, the National Council of Provinces, and municipality councils are deployees of the organization and must always work within organizational mandates, accountability, and reporting. Deployees are not a separate structure of Mkhonto weSizwe, but deployees who must seek mandate from the organization in all their work programs and activities. Mkhonto weSizwe public representatives are guided to significantly upgrade and improve their functions, roles, and character as representatives of the legitimate majority in South Africa. In the National Assembly, the MK must demonstrate its capacity as the leader of the official opposition and must illustrate the organization's capacity to be an alternate government. The levels and quality of debate, interventions, oversight, and leadership must significantly improve. And because Mkhonto weSizwe is slowly but surely gaining momentum in the local government sphere and space, we have also resolved as the National High Command to establish a dedicated local government desk which will give strategic support to all our councillors and begin the work of preparing the organization for efficient and effective leadership of municipalities from 2026 onwards. The MK will outrightly win majority of municipalities in the 2026 local government elections, and the local government desk will start with work of preparing the ground towards that inevitable reality. Recognizing that elections constitute the most and primary instrument through which the MK seeks to attain state power, the National High Command resolved to significantly strengthen the elections unit of our organization. This will include the appointment of dedicated provincial and regional elections coordinators under the direct leadership of the national head of elections to foster organizational impact in all the elections. The organization is in the process of assembling the election support materials, including vehicles and trucks, which are going to be given to provinces as part of preparing for the upcoming elections and making sure that the organization has got the necessary impact. Mkhonto weSizwe has resolved in the National High Command to spearhead a vigorous and principled campaign against the proposed increase on value-added tax, VAT, which was resolved and supported by majority of members of parliament. We will work within parliament to present clear alternatives as to what else can be done instead of increasing VAT, which is going to impoverish our people. But also we're going to take our struggles to the streets to get the people to be the ones that resist the increase on VAT. That is the program which the Secretariat and national officials is going to give a program of action of what will all regions, all provinces, and all structures of Mkhonto weSizwe do to resist the increase of VAT. The other issue which Mkhonto we National High Command resolved on is to strongly condemn Mr. Ramaphosa's misguided decision to extend the invitation to Zelensky, the puppet president of Ukraine. The MK views this move as a clear alignment with European and Western imperialist interests and an affront to South Africa's historical position of non-alignment and anti-imperialism. Accordingly, Mkhonto we will formally oppose any official visit of Zelensky to South Africa, and we will stage protest against the visit of Zelensky into South Africa. We do not want him to come because he has been a puppet of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization-led militarism, which sought to destabilize Eastern Europe and possibly the entire world through an unjust and unfair expansion of NATO forces. In relation to discipline, Mkhonto we has resolved the National High Command that discipline remains at the center, the cornerstone of our movement in all the work that we do. That will strengthen the work of the National Prosecutor of Mkhonto we and the National Disciplinary Committee to expedite all the work that is before it. The advice and the guidance politically to the prosecutor and the National High Command is that all the cases that are brought before them should be dealt with expeditiously in a manner that will enforce revolutionary discipline in Mkhonto we. Part of the resolutions of Mkhonto we National High Command is to convene a policy conference in August 2025. So the work streams that we announced earlier will feed into a policy conference which is going to adopt the policies of Mkhonto we in finality as to what happens. There are policy statements and policy positions of Mkhonto we as articulated in the People's Mandate, as articulated in the Freedom Charter, but the substantial policy positions will be officially and fully adopted in the 2025 August policy conference. When we had our last press conference here in Sandton, we had announced that on the 12th of April, Mkhonto we is going to hold the inaugural President Jacob Zuma lecture on the 12th of April. We have now taken a decision that the inaugural President Jacob Zuma lecture is going to take place on the 26th of June 2025. 26 June is Freedom Charter Day. That is the date where the Freedom Charter was adopted. And the lecture is going to be attended by significant and prominent international guests and speakers and traditional leaders, religious leaders, members of Mkhonto we and other progressive forces. We are organizing a quality, proper program which is going to take place on the 26th of June 2025 to speak about the lives and times of President Jacob Zuma, because there have been so many things said wrongly about President Zuma. And we will, as Mkhonto we defend his politics, his legacy now. And those who have got problems must tell us which problems they have. But on the 12th of April, we have directed that all provinces should have their own programs to talk about the lives and times of President Jacob Zuma, his politics, because he's our president, he's our leader. And there's been so many distortions of his politics. There's been so many caricature of his politics. There's been so many things that are said wrongly about him. And we should openly associate and defend President Zuma as Mkhonto we. So all provinces will be advised to hold their own programs on the 12th of April, which coincides with the birth date of President Jacob Zuma. The last issue which the National High Command resolved on was to instruct the Secretariat and the national officials and the deployees of Mkhonto we to provinces to expedite the process of appointment of all the remaining provincial detachments, but also the regional detachments of the regions that do not have regional leadership. The specific emphasis that we need to establish the detachments in the provinces of the Eastern, Western, and Northern Capes, so that we have got stable leadership that is going to lead Umkhonto weSizwe. There's huge appetite for Umkhonto weSizwe in those provinces. In the Western Cape is demonstrated by MK's decisive victory in the West Coast region, Saldanha Bay, Ward 1. So we're starting with Ward 1. From Ward 1 is 2, 3, 4, moving forward. That is how the numbers are counted. We'll take everything, not only in the inland provinces, but also in the coastal provinces. In conclusion, the organization stands at a pivotal and delicate juncture in its evolution, a phase that will define its trajectory and legacy for generations to come. This critical period demands the highest levels of discipline, unity, and composure from its leadership collective. As custodians of the movement's vision and values, leaders must always lead by example, understanding that their conduct directly shape the culture and behavior of the broader membership. When leadership exudes unity, clarity, and commitment to principle, the membership will mirror that spirit. Conversely, signs of ill discipline, infighting, or personal agendas will inevitably sow confusion and division from amongst the ranks of Umkhonto weSizwe. Umkhonto weSizwe is uniquely positioned to play a historic role in uniting Indlu Emnyama, the broad mass of our African people, behind a shared vision of liberation, dignity, and radical transformation. But that mission will only succeed if the organization itself reflects the unity and moral leadership it seeks to inspire in society. Without this, the people will lose faith and drift away from the movement, weakening the prospects of true national renewal. Let us therefore rise to the moment with humility, integrity, and unwavering commitment to the revolutionary path before us, which is the revolutionary path towards state power, which the MK is going to lead. Africa, my boy. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, SG, for a very comprehensive, informative media statement.